Well, the American Taliban is back now in Texas. They want to control the bodies of women based on fundamentalist interpretations of 3,000-year-old books. Brilliant, right? Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, and share it with your friends. And follow us right here on this channel. Thank you. Okay, the other point I wanted to make is about the American Taliban. Remember when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana? And his goal was to ban abortion altogether, to make it completely illegal. And he was championing a law in Indiana. And frankly, I don't recall if it got made into law and got put on hold by a court action or if it was only on the edge of being made into law. But in any case, he was championing this law that he wanted to put into effect that essentially said that a miscarriage might be an abortion. Right? There's all these stories of women who try to do self-abortions, or they fall down a flight of stairs intentionally in order to cause an abortion. And so because a miscarriage even might be an abortion, anytime a woman is more than a week late on her menstrual period, she has to notify the local police department so they can keep an eye on her. And as a result of this, if you're not, if you're a youngin', you may not remember this. This was literally 20 years ago. Well, not entirely 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. But there was this phenomena when Mike Pence was governor of Indiana called Periods for Pence, where women all over Indiana were tweeting or emailing Mike Pence, telling him when their periods began, and, oh, my period just came back, so I'm not pregnant, not to worry, I'm good for another month. Well, it's getting real in Texas. Brian Slayton is a Texas state representative, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has said he wants at least 2 anti-abortion bills before the Texas legislature this year. One of them just got dropped yesterday. This legislation by Brian Slayton, State Representative Brian Slayton, would abolish and criminalize abortions and explicitly say that getting an abortion or performing an abortion is murder and punishable by the death penalty in Texas. Now, I remember years ago I was at CPAC, I was at the RNC when it was in New York. I think it was 2008. And I had one of these Republican members of Congress on, and he was like, abortion is murder. And I said, well, if it's murder, what should the penalty be for women to get abortions? Do you want, we execute people for murder in America. Do you want them hung? Do you want them shot? Do you want it to be the gas chamber? And he said, well, that's up to the states. And it was one of those whoa moments. Well, that's what they're proposing in Texas. He said, it's time Republicans make it clear that we think abortion actually is murder. In 2019, State Representative Jeff Leach of Plano refused to consider a similar piece of legislation by Representative Tony Tinderholt. These are all Republicans. But he was the head of the committee that it had to go through, and he said it's not going to pass the committee. He got death threats and had to have security. The Republican, who wasn't opposed to the legislation, he just said, I don't think we can get this out of committee. This bill by Slayton so far is supported by more than 40 lawmakers, about half of the Republicans in the House of Representatives. I'm reading this piece from the Texas Tribune, texastribune.org. Slayton said, all my bill does is say that an unborn child is the same as a born child and should be treated the same way by the same laws. It would also require people to give evidence to testify about offenses involving abortions, which presumably could also involve miscarriages, particularly if you could prove they're intentional, and immediately offers immunity. So if you are the spouse or the friend of a woman who has had a miscarriage that the local police department thinks might be an abortion, you can be dragged before a grand jury and forced to testify under oath against your will and put in prison if you refuse to about anything you know about whether or not that woman threw herself down a flight of stairs, or drank too much alcohol, or took drugs that might have caused that miscarriage. In my opinion, it's time for the American Taliban, these religious fundamentalists, these religious crazies, to just get the hell out of our political life and get the hell out of women's uteruses.